So we're here at Athena Herd. This is, I think, our third time here, working with Mimer Center, doing one of our equine therapy trainings. And I just wanted to show you what goes on here a little bit. They have a really cool setup. They have, they do some pasture management, some pasture rotations. They also have alpacas here. But one of the really cool things is they implement what's called a track system. A lot of people don't know what a track system is, so I'll be interviewing Jennifer later and sticking her in this video to have her kind of explain what it is. It's a really cool way to sort of incorporate different footings, different ways of exploration, different kinds of environmental enrichment into the equine's atmosphere and conditions. So I took a little bit of video before, and I'll put that in here too, but what behind me is, part of the track system. And hay bags are hung around. There's actually a barn where they can go, a big shelter that's incorporated in here. There's an arena back here that's it's attached to the track system, so it can actually open up onto it. A big barn over here where the horses are actually in right now. That's where they are. They're, again, hay bags and things. There's all kinds of places for them to find water along here. The track itself isn't all that wide, but the fences are movable, and that's the really cool part about this, is that they can close off or open up different parts. So some of these, some of the pastures that are back here are actually part of, they can open them up or close them off depending on pasture management, and also opportunities to sort of change what parts of the track are open. So that's part of this, and then we're going to interview Jennifer in a little bit, but I just wanted to introduce this system because it's something that's kind of a new, kind of emerging way of managing horses, especially in small environments. So for stables that have limited space or need different kinds of pasture management opportunities, it gives a lot of versatility. It creates these kind of track approaches that emphasizes movement in the horses. You can put down different footings for the hoof health of the horse too. But again, I'm going to interview her. She's going to tell you more about it, and we'll stick that in here too. Thanks.
Track system's all about promoting movement, choice, giving the horses freedom. The idea is they move around, they search for hay, food, water, and that really just encourages them to move around. It encourages natural behaviour. They play. We've got quite a big mixed herd here. They range from very small Falabella to quite a large sort of 18-hand horse. And mares, geldings. I've had actually colts on the track when they were very young. So it's really nice to get that variety, and just it really helps and promotes natural behaviour.
And what made you design your track system here the way you did?
Well, a lot of the time we've ended up watching the land and really watching the horses and where they'd like to hang out, creating the space around them really. When we first moved here, the last thing we thought about doing was building a track system. Came from a very traditional background, but the horses were really quite unhappy and started to display sort of fairly stereotypic behaviour, so weaving, colic, cut legs from basically getting quite stressed and anxious of being left out in the fields. So when we moved here, the horses had been in for quite a long time. They had not had a lot of access to grass, so moving here, sort of 17 acres of very long lush grass was quite scary. So we initially, we're lucky because we've got a barn, so we initially put them in the barn with hay and gave them sort of quite limited access to grazing, but the fencing here was really quite bad, falling down. It was barbed wire, sort of sheep stock fencing. So we spent a lot of our time actually ripping all of that out, so we were left with a blank canvas. And we really then started designing our track around the blank canvas. Initially we started out with quite sort of plastic fencing, so things that you can really just move and mould and play with, and that gives you a lot of flexibility. We've got creating it with sort of handles and gateways, and again you can sort of snip and change those as you're working out maybe where things need to be. So that's really how we got going here.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add about track systems, or what you even do here at Athena?
I think you have to be careful when you're setting up a track system. I think I'm noticing now that there's a lot of sort of commercially driven track systems, and obviously people are sort of looking at quite a lot of numbers on potentially smaller areas of land. Things to think about are really, noded ends, nice wide spaces, and just be quite careful. Sometimes when things look great on photographs, they're not necessarily great for the horses. You've just really got to watch your land and see what little changes can do and make to the land. We're doing a bit of an experiment at the moment. We've shifted and moved our muck heap, but again that then creates different issues in terms of land management, so your runoff from your muck heap. So I think if you do things in sort of small stages and sort of projects, and then really just look at how that's impacting what you've done and what you're doing in terms of the way the horses are finding it and moving around it, and also around how the land's actually coping. So I think that's just something to think about when you're designing your track. So, we are now a private track. We've had up to 21 horses. We've done talks and papers for the BHS from a sort of, from an animal welfare perspective, and how the ratios of a track system compare to, for example, the health and well-being and welfare of a horse that were being kept in a more separated environment. And so I think it's quite interesting, and we've learned a lot along the way. We've had track successes and track failures in terms of horses, and not every horse, I think, finds that a track or living as part of the herd is necessarily right for them. And so we run a track day now, so at least, even though we're not a livery yard anymore, we are a private track, we can still give back to people that are thinking about building a track system, or maybe they just want a little bit more knowledge and information, or they just want to maybe go through some of our trials and tribulations along the way. So I think these days are really valuable, and it's our way of giving back to people that are wanting to have their horse on a track, but we can't necessarily take them.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. I needed to stick this in here because let me be really clear. We're down in the Kent region of England, but they've had probably record amounts of rain this winter. But most people are saying that this is one of the wettest winters on record. So there is a ton of mud here. Thankfully, I have new boots so they can withstand this mud. But they've had to close off part of this track because of so much mud. And I'm talking to people all over the place, and they're having all kinds of mud issues. It's a great system, and part of the movable fences kind of help with the mud management issue too.